Welcome to Bye, everyone. I'd like to welcome to the stage Matt Lohman, Verisk Marketing Solutions.
It is great to see everybody here today. 3 years in the making. So several of you were here with us in 2019. We had an awesome day and an awesome time. It looks like we've had a little adversity to start the day, but hopefully that's the end of it. Now you got to listen to me talk. We tried to cut it down as much as we could. But yeah, welcome to Philly. It's the birthplace of independence, but it's also the birthplace of Jornaya. So that's what brings us to Philly today. So thank you, everybody, for making the trip. And I'm delighted to say that I'm not stuck on mute on a Zoom. I hope you guys are too. So these are the diehards in the room right here that decided, hey, let's get back out and let's do this. So again, we've been kicking this down the road and just desperate to get back together again. So we truly are thankful that everybody made the travel here. And we've got a lot of great news and a lot of developments that have happened in the market together with our company over the last 3 years. So we're going to be excited to share some of that and share the stage with a bunch of great people today. So we're going to dive right in. And again, one last Zoom reference. I had to figure out my wardrobe today for the first time in a long time. So that was a little bit challenging, but my pants still fit. So that's good. Great night last night for those of you who joined us at Constitution Center. We had a little taste of Philly in there. We had a cool up-and-coming band called Snack Time that were kicking it out, and a lot of great history in that space. I don't know if any of you knew this, but I learned last night that the word Pennsylvania is misspelled on the Constitution. Did anybody know that? Yeah, one N instead of two. So I can take that with me. Wasn't a total loss. But if you missed it, I highly encourage you guys to, if you have time, to try to make your way over there. The Liberty Bell is right there on display. I know many of you took that in. I was remiss to not announce the Rocky Run this morning, but it sounds like we had a good turnout for that. And if you missed that, the Rocky Steps are just a couple blocks up the street here. And again, it's a beautiful day, so I encourage you to take in some of the Philly sights and scenes while you're here. And then today, right, we're in this unbelievable facility, beautiful architecture, just a bunch of genius artwork right behind this wall. There's an incredible story behind Albert Barnes and his rare collection of art, valued at up to $30 billion of art in there. 181 Renoirs, for example. So for those of you, even if you're not a fine appreciator of art, it kind of sets a nice tone for us all as we think about, you know, the combination of the artistry and the science of doing good marketing. That was kind of what drew us to this facility in the first place. And so we're just super excited to be back here and have a great day with everybody. And speaking of art, another piece of artistry here of a different flavor. We had a little cheesesteak sampler last night, but don't be ashamed if you're all from out of town and want to make the pilgrimage to get your cheesesteak on. So there's plenty of choices. Lots of folks in the room can give you their opinions on the best one. There's a guarantee no matter where you go, you're going to have a major food coma, but you're going to be full for the trip home. So go get nourished if you're so desired to have a cheesesteak here in Philly. It took me a few months before I started to dive into one, but then I realized why I didn't do that earlier, else I probably would have been useless to Ross and the team when I started at Jornaya about 5 years ago with a cheesesteak in my belly. So let's get into introductions. I'm Matt Lohman. I am proud and grateful to be the managing director, leader of what we're now kind of in a coming out party here as Verisk Marketing Solutions. I've been around the marketing space for over 20 years, always around marketing tech, data, lead generation, and just share a passion with these three great companies we're going to introduce you to a little bit more throughout the day: Jornaya, Infutor, Contact State, of just a bunch of great people who've come together with really a singular goal in mind, shared with many of you in the room here, which is to really innovate the marketing space and do that through unique applications of data and technology. So that's really what we're going to thematically discuss throughout the day and feature a bunch of smart people up here on stage. Speaking of which, I'd like to now welcome to the stage Mr. Eli Schwartz. So if you could give Eli a round of applause. So Eli has been with Jornaya almost since its inception. He's over 9 years in. He's done a host of things. Many of you that are in the room have crossed paths with Eli in a variety of capacities, and he has been instrumental in the last year or two of helping us with our vision and strategy for building this thing we're calling Verisk Marketing Solutions, with Verisk support and sponsorship as our new parent. So without further ado, Eli, why don't we kick this thing open?
Thanks, Matt. Good morning, everyone. It's great to be here with you all today. It's hard to imagine it's been 3 years since the last time we were able to get together and do this event in person, but it feels great to be back. It's great to see so many familiar faces that have been with us over the years, and a lot of new faces that are joining us for the first time. So I just want to start by saying thank you to all of you for spending your time with us. You know, our team certainly puts a lot of energy into making this event come to life, but we recognize that it's a very significant investment for each and every one of you as attendees to come out to Philadelphia to spend last night with us, to choose to spend your day today with us. Many of you are business leaders, you have companies to run, you have teams to lead, customers that need your time and attention, but you chose to be here with us and spend the time with us, and we're extremely appreciative and grateful for that. With that in mind, we have what we hope will be a pretty phenomenal lineup of speakers and thought leaders that are going to share perspective throughout the day. We have CMOs and marketing leaders from some of the most innovative insurance and financial services companies. We have business leaders across a variety of data and technology companies that are going to talk about the innovative solutions they're building to support those marketers. And then as we get into the afternoon, we have experts on privacy, compliance, and data governance that are going to share their perspective. And these are some core themes that we're going to talk about this morning as well, that are really impacting the ways in which we all need to adapt and evolve the way we do business to meet the needs and expectations of consumers in the future. And throughout today, we have a number of opportunities built into the schedule for networking. So we've got a break this morning, we have lunch, we have a break in the afternoon, we have a networking happy hour. Our hope is that you all will take advantage of those opportunities to meet each other, talk with your peers, collaborate. This is a big part of why we put this event together, is to create an opportunity for everyone to come together and share knowledge. So find us, seek us out if we can be helpful in making connections across the group. We're happy to facilitate introductions. With that, I think we're going to get things started here and talk about a couple of trends or key themes that we're seeing across the data and the marketing landscape that are requiring, I think, all of us to adapt and evolve in the face of change.
Yeah, so we all know we're working in markets that are going through a tremendous amount of change right now. And there's a lot of considerations that take place when you're thinking about these new challenges. It's not just about increasing competition, it's about new market entrants, it's about new business models. But as Eli mentioned, the big thing is about the increasing pressures, both on consumers and on us as business stakeholders, in the privacy regulations and all the legislations that are coming out and down. So we're going to pepper that throughout today. And it's a quantity of change, but it's really a velocity of change, and trying to keep up with that change is becoming increasingly hard. And what we really want to do is embrace the change and have optimism through the change, because after all, anytime you go through a lot of change and challenge, there's usually a ton of opportunities in disguise there. And that's kind of the attitude we have on this situation, and we hope that you guys share with us, and we want to bring everybody together. So we're going to kind of tease out some things that are heavy on our mind. We think they're heavy on your mind, and we want to kind of unpack that a little bit this morning, and then have that kind of tee us up for a really productive day throughout the day with some other folks in and amongst us here on stage. It's a great chance for me to give a shout out to our keynote speaker, Charlene Lee, who will be up on stage here after Eli and I. And Charlene is an expert on disruption. She's made a career out of digital transformation and disruption, and she's going to talk to you about a bunch of great examples of customers who kind of have this mentality of embracing what the future customers' needs are, even in this time in which, hey, it's so hard to keep up and try to just keep current customers happy and coming through our doors and supplying a great experience. But she's going to challenge all of us and keep us thinking about ways that we should be thinking further out ahead of what's coming, and that some great success stories that have come from that with some companies that you'll easily recognize. So we're looking forward to having her here on stage in a minute. So with that, Eli, why don't we start to break down some things here?
Great. Yeah, so
Sorry, one ahead. There we go.
Yeah, so as we get ready to hear more from Charlene about this disruption mindset and this focus on the customer of the future, we want to tee up some trends that are specific to the data and the marketing landscape. And I'll give the spoiler alert here before we jump into some of the stats, which is because everything we talk about keeps coming back to the intersection between personalization and privacy, and the increasing level of complexity that comes with managing conflict across these two things. We know that consumers want personalized experiences. In fact, in many cases, they're demanding personalized experiences from the brands they work with. We also know that marketers want to deliver personalized experiences. It's been proven time and time again that personalized marketing delivers a strong return on the marketing investment. And yet at the same time, consumers are asking for more privacy. They want their data protected, and in many cases, they're actually freaked out or creeped out by overly personal advertising. So we have inherent conflict across these things, and it's going to require all of us to be extremely thoughtful and deliberate in how we design personalized experiences with a strong foundational underpinning of privacy behind them if we want to maintain and build trust with consumers as we evolve. I'll jump into some of the stats here, and I think starting with consumer sentiment. In a recent survey by Accenture, 91% of consumers said that they're more likely to shop with a brand if that brand provides relevant offers and recommendations. This is not particularly surprising. I think we can all appreciate the value of content that's relevant to what we're actually interested in and looking for.
The counterpoint of view is the Dwight Schrute scenario where consumers actually get irked or annoyed if there's a lack of personalization. We've all been there. I don't know if it's fair to put Dwight in this category, but who doesn't like a gratuitous Dwight Schrute slide to kind of mix it up first thing in the morning? We tried the fire alarm, we've got Dwight Schrute. But as Eli said, in addition to that, it's been proven time and time again that when you can deliver the right kind of personalized experience, your ROI goes through the roof. Here's a study by McKinsey, 5 to 8 times improvement on your spend in marketing. And again, that's the sweet spot where we all sit here today in deciding, especially the way the markets have been twisting and turning lately, on where to spend that next dollar and on which consumer, and a consumer that's going to appreciate that, and one that we know what's going on with that consumer so that they also receive messages that are timely and relevant.
So we're clear that consumers want personalized experiences, marketers want to deliver those personalized experiences, but it's becoming more and more complex to actually do that in practice. And the reason for that is this is where privacy comes into play, and the evolving consumer sentiment around privacy, as well as the reaction to that sentiment from regulators and from the big tech companies that have a lot of control over how the internet operates. First, on consumer sentiment, a recent survey showed that over half of consumers felt that there actually was no online privacy, so it didn't exist at all for them. And I think this speaks to the lack of trust that consumers have, and helpful for all of us to realize that consumers are starting from this baseline level of mistrust with regards to their privacy and how their data is used. Part of the reason for that mistrust may come from overly personal and personal advertising that's viewed in a negative light by the consumer. Another study, this one from Cheetah Digital, showed that most consumers view personalized advertising based on location data as creepy. And this is just one example. We've all heard some of the horror stories of personalization gone wrong. The most infamous, probably dating back 10 years ago to Target, when their ads ended up accidentally making a parent aware that their teenage daughter was pregnant by targeting ads to that household. And these are just a couple examples, but this type of mishap can actually have pretty significant impacts in a brand's ability to acquire or retain customers. In another survey by Gartner, 38% of consumers said that they would actually stop doing business with a company if they deemed their personalization efforts to be creepy. And this type of reaction from consumers comes from, in many cases, a feeling that they're losing control and losing transparency into what's happening with their data. In another study, this one from Salesforce, 61% of consumers said they feel like they've lost control over how their personal information is being used. And the flip side to that, in another survey, only 1 in 5 consumers said they actually feel like they have control over how their data is being used.
Yeah, so there's serious concerns, right, from consumers and companies about how that data flows from the consumer into our walls as businesses. And we can talk a little bit more about some of the reasons why that's backed up. In 2021, CNET reported that there were over 1,800 data breaches in 2021. And the scariest part about that is it was up 68% from the year prior. So it's not only that the consumer's worried about their data, but businesses are also worried about how do I protect that data when we're entrusted with it. And there's another little thread here that's weaved throughout, which is when we think about personalization, there is also the error to the side of I might have too much data. What's the sweet spot of the data I need to drive? We need the data to drive that transaction and that interaction. But there's also this scenario we talk about a lot of having too much data laying around inside of your building that potentially is a liability for all of us, and that's not the position any of us would want to be in. Furthermore, the regulators are taking a look at this too. So again, unless you're, living in remote parts of the world, you recognize just how much buzz and circumstances happening now inside of new privacy legislation as it comes to the US. 38 states in the last year have introduced over 160 new privacy-related bills, and there's a lot following. Colorado is the most recent to follow behind the footsteps of California. We're only at the beginning of this. I think the real challenge for all of us and for the consumer is the complexity and the fact that it's happening at the state level, which makes it really hard and confusing for all of us to achieve a good outcome from that, especially the consumer. So we're all paying attention to these things again we're going to be talking about throughout the day. And then there's the big tech companies, right? So Google's really the last game standing where there's a huge third-party cookie situation still out in the mix. Apple has moved that out of Safari. Furthermore, Apple's releasing all kinds of tech in iOS, like Ask App Not to Track functionality. So everybody's paying attention. You could debate all day long if the things these big tech companies are trying to do are really solving the ultimate problem that we're after here, or is it just creating more challenges for the consumer to ultimately get what they want? Because again, at that intersection of personalization and privacy, the consumer is still expecting us to meet them where they're at with the right message at the right time. So this is the sweet spot we're dancing around throughout the conversation today. Eli, how do we proceed?
Yeah, so this, I think, brings us back to this question of how do we strike the right balance, with regards to personalization and privacy. And I think part of our opinion is we think it starts with building trust with the consumer. One way to do that is to focus on informed consent and gathering permission from the consumer. So in the February edition of the CMO survey, 58% of CMOs said they were focusing on gathering informed consent as a method for building trust with their customers and with the consumers they're interacting with. Another key part of building trust comes from demonstrating to consumers and customers that we are operating as good stewards of the data that they entrust us with. So in many cases, consumers are providing us with sensitive personal information about them, and they're relying on us to take care of that data and guard it on their behalf. This is an area that is receiving a lot of attention, a lot of emerging technology coming out in this category to help make it easier to better protect consumer data. One example is data clean rooms. So another survey, this one by Gartner, showed that by 2023, 80% of advertisers with budgets of greater than $1 billion would be operating with data clean rooms in their process of exchanging data. So these data clean rooms are a way for companies to share data and insights with each other off of their data sets without needing to actually exchange the raw or sensitive personal information about the consumer in that process. Another example in this same area is the investment going into encryption and tokenization. So encryption and tokenization are methods to take raw, personally identifiable information and convert it into anonymized data on that consumer. And this helps in the instance that Matt was describing earlier around a worst case scenario where there's a data breach or where a bad actor is able to come in and penetrate a company's systems, getting access to the data that they have. If all of that data has been encrypted or tokenized in advance, it ends up being useless to the bad actor that's stealing that data, because it's just the encrypted tokenized value that is virtually impossible to reverse engineer or tie back to any individual or person. So it's a step to mitigate the risk of what might happen in one of these worst case scenarios.
Yeah, and with all these themes Eli's talking about here, what it really brings us back to, and what you're starting to see, is a renewed focus on a company's first-party data. When you're trying to apply all these tactics and principles and security standards, it has to start inside your own walls. And we've always had a foundational belief that we want to be there helping enrich that first-party data asset. Companies need to know what data they have, they need to know how they're applying that data, and they also need to know where they don't need to be applying certain types of data or making sure that data is utmost secure. And that's really what we're trying to do, is operate with what's necessary versus what's liability. There's a Claravine study that you see here on the screen. Claravine's a data integrity firm, and they're showing you that this is an increasing focus area. Again, I'm sure many of you in the room would agree. And we're really excited about the opportunities to kind of charge down this path with each of you, both as partners and as customers, to get this right and see how we can drive new futuristic forms of customer engagement.
Yeah, and I think a lot of that renewed focus on first-party data has been kind of spurred along by the death of cookies and the challenges with accessing app data that you talked about earlier with Apple. So marketers are trying to find more ways to get the data that they need on consumers to power personalization efforts, while also putting new focus around privacy and security to build trust and make that work and future-proof it, essentially. This one was interesting too. I think in addition to focusing in on the data assets that marketers already have in their first-party data set, there's a growth in the number of data sources that they're using to enrich those assets. So in 2022, B2C marketers are expected to use 12 different data sources to bring in-house from outside partners, versus last year where they were using 9. So that number is continuing to grow. There's more and more focus and investment going into getting smarter about how to enrich the assets that you have.
So again, that brings us back to really this crossroads of opportunity. What we really want to do is just get into more of these dialogues with you today. We're just scratching the surface as you see all these things that are swirling, and we're trying to get our arms around, setting the tone here for what we're going to talk about the rest of today. The privacy thing admittedly has people on edge, both the consumer and the business. But at this moment in time, again, we firmly believe there's a lot of fresh opportunities for all of us in the space, and we want to take the lead. And as Eli said, just to reiterate, to build trust with the consumer, to be good stewards with their data, and ultimately to have a first-party data strategy that the consumer is going to appreciate when it comes to personalization and just the privacy in which you conceal their data and protect their data. And we know, again, that customers are expecting us to deliver marketing on their terms in the moments that matter for them, where they're at in their certain journeys, which we'll talk about a little bit here. We have a real-life story. Somebody amongst us today, these are real people, not actors. You might recognize this gentleman on the screen. So Chris is one of our employees, and there's no better way to bring something into light than a real world story. And so Chris was fortunate enough to work with us to share his story of him and his young family on a search for their first home. There's a subplot here we won't go into for Chris about also getting out of his parents' basement, which they were temporarily housed up in. So that's probably a more interesting side of the story, but that's not on topic here. Chris is a major life event to purchase a new home. There's tons of consideration and research. It's the area that we love operating in together as businesses. The way this played out for Chris is not unlike many people you know. He was in and out of market quite a bit. Housing inventory is at an all-time low. He did the right thing. He got pre-approved with a lender right away, so he could go out and be ready to once they find the house of their dreams, move quickly. But inevitably, again, he was in and out of market. the pre-approval that he'd had with a lender kind of fell out of fashion because of the time that had passed, lost touch, that lender lost touch. Meanwhile, a lot of searches, a lot of in-home visits, a lot of online activity, till ultimately they finally found that first dream home of theirs and decided to act on it. So cue the next procedure, which is getting into the new loan operation, credit gets pulled, and then here comes the flurry of activity that comes behind that, as everybody's now tipped off way late in the game to the fact that, oh, I've got a willing participant here that might need my services. But of course, all those things, not the best of timing, not the best of messaging, many irrelevant home equity lines of credit offers, refinancing offers when truly we're in a new home purchase cycle. And so long story short, it could have been a lot better and a lot easier to provide Chris a lot of value, because again, he had plenty of interactions throughout that lengthy journey with many different service providers that were made aware at some point in time what was going on. And we are here to obviously see how we seize those moments better and bring a most relevant and timely message to the equation. And Eli, why don't you talk to us about maybe ways that that could have been made better?
Definitely. Yeah, so in order to kind of achieve a better level of personalization in that experience with Chris, his bank needs to coordinate across a number of areas that we've been talking about this morning and that we're going to get into throughout the day, starting with building a trusted relationship with Chris and ensuring that they're gathering his permission, his consent, securing his data appropriately, and they have to have the right foundational first-party data assets if they want to be able to reach Chris at the right time with the right message. So they need to have invested in identity resolution. If they don't have the right contact data on Chris and they don't know where he lives in their CRM, there's no way they're ever going to be able to actually get in touch with him because they can't reach him. And if they don't have insight into when Chris is actually shopping and in the market looking for a new loan, they're not going to be able to right time that outreach and that experience with him. So this brings us to the theme for today, right? Coordination across all of these different areas. Our theme for the conference is Better Together, and this speaks to that effort to coordinate. We have kind of two, I think, dual meanings behind this. One relates to what we're trying to accomplish and the journey that we're on as Verisk Marketing Solutions, where we're bringing together three unique companies in Jornaya and Infutor and Contact State under this umbrella of Verisk Marketing Solutions, and we're trying to create new value, new ways for our customers to get smarter about these types of personalized engagements with consumers. Matt, do you want to add more context on our journey?
Yeah, so again, we're delighted to be up here today talking as a unified front as Verisk Marketing Solutions. It's been a great story in the making. Many of you know us as Jornaya and formerly Lead ID, which was all around and still fundamentally sits around lead transparency and performance, but also helping marketers create those exceptional experiences through those right-timed interactions when we know somebody like Chris is out there and can use a well-personalized message about a home buying process, whether you're a lender, a home insurer, or any number of home service providers that live in around that space. And so we were fortunate enough to get acquired by Verisk, a great parent company for us, in December of 2020. It was on the heels of a venue here in 2019. We thought we'd be together again in 2020, so a lot has changed since then. In the process of that acquisition, we were made aware of a great young company in the UK called Contact State. And as we got to know those guys, realized they're on the similar journey that Lead ID went on years ago, which was certifying leads, providing data integrity around those leads that prop up both the buyer and the seller of those leads in a really healthy environment that ultimately the consumer wins in. So we're delighted to call Contact State a part of Verisk Marketing Solutions. We don't have them here with us today. They're banging away in the UK, conquering that market right now as we speak, and you'll hear more about that as we go forward together in our history. Fast forward to February of this year, we'd always had a fondness and a good camaraderie with several folks inside of Infutor's business. And Infutor, as Eli mentioned, is an identity resolution business. And they also provide a ton of great consumer intelligence at both the person and the household level to give you attributes of both who the individual is behind that interaction you're trying to have, and perhaps what the key elements of that individual are that can potentially help you tune that personalization just right for that individual. So they currently possess 266 million profiles in the US, and those profiles are made available in real time and other sorts, so you can push that information, and we're going to talk about it this afternoon, right inside that interaction, and bring more value to the equation at first inception of talking to the consumer, or as you move forward with trying to build a good, trusted relationship with the consumer.
Great. So this theme of better together, also applies to the evolution of this conference. As excited as we are about what we can accomplish by bringing these businesses together and kind of creating new solutions with the combined data assets, we'd frankly be fooling ourselves to think we can do it all on our own and solve the industry's challenges by ourselves. We certainly can't. So our hope for this event is that this becomes a space for everyone to collaborate, to bring together other companies that are partnering with us, that are partnering with marketers in this space to try to solve similar challenges, and that we create an opportunity for everyone to discuss those shared challenges together and collaborate towards the same end goal or vision.
Yeah, and to Eli's point, it goes beyond just this event. So this notion of via, the literal meaning of that is traveling through a place on your way to a destination. And so we kind of hatched this idea of trying to build more of a sense of community that takes place beyond just this one time, one day opportunity for us to get together. We're recording a lot of this content. You're going to see us moving that into the market. We're going to have a lot of follow-on activities and events around this notion of community. And so that's really what we want to do, is foster that with you and carry that further for our colleagues that couldn't be with us today. And we put a little exclamation point in there just to add a little bit of fun and energy to it. But we hope that resonates with everybody in the room, and we're going to continue to build on this. One example of this, if you visit via.journaya.com. Can you get that? Press it. Via.journaya.com is a first iteration of a directory. So we've got over 2,000 marketing performance agencies, partners in a directory today online. Early stages here, but it's a great opportunity. We get asked all the time in the space we sit between brands and the performance marketers and lead generation providers that service those brands. Hey, how can I fan out, find new partners, find new ways to grow my business? And it serves both sides of that equation very well. We're just getting started with this. We've got a lot of great plans for this over the coming months and years. And we would encourage you to check that out, and we'd love to collaborate with you further on ways we can bring that further to life. Last but not least, our whole team at Verisk Marketing Solutions feel like a big part of being better together is also giving back to our communities. And again, we've become a very distributed workforce, but we've picked a couple of organizations that we've chosen to support through the years. The first being Back on My Feet, which is an incredible organization that's trying to combat homelessness through the power of physical fitness. So they get together, they organize runs. For those of you that were here joining us in 2019, they actually helped us sponsor our run to the Rocky Steps last time. We weren't able to coordinate that this time, but we are still well connected with them. The other one is Equal Justice Initiative, which is out fighting for important criminal justice. And both of these organizations, I would encourage you, we're going to share a little bit more profile on them here a little bit later today. I would encourage you to go do some more research, but a portion of each of your registration fees is going to both of these great organizations, and we're very proud to support them and others in some good philanthropic efforts. So please do take a little time. You'll hear more about both of these here a little bit later today, and encourage you to connect more with both Back on My Feet and Equal Justice Initiative.